Okay, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I am presenting on this shloka from Prayers of Queen Kunti 1.8.30. I'll just say quick prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Namo
Bhagavate.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपाकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी हरे कृष्णा. So this shloka I'll just recite and read the translation. Janma karm cha vishwatman ajasya kartur atmana tiryan rishishu yadashu tad atyanta vidambanam. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki jai. Of course it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work though you are inactive, and that you take birth though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics, where verily this is bewildering. Hare Krishna. So I'm presenting from one of Prabhupada's lectures from 1973. So this verse is very powerful. It talks about many different things here. Queen Kunti is mentioning various aspects of Krishna. So if we just break it down, if you remember in the last verse she mentioned how it is, I discussed that last time, how Krishna's activities, pastimes, chikirshitam, or the pastimes are so bewildering to ordinary human beings. They compare a Krishna to ordinary human and they expect his activities to be similar to theirs. So when he does something out of the social norms or out of the code of conduct or out of the mundane morality that is expected of ordinary human beings, then they get bewildered. And in this shloka she's continuing on that theme, that of course it is bewildering, she says, and then she's calling him soul of the universe or Vishwatman. So I'll discuss this word a little more in detail, what soul of universe or Vishwatman means. And the next thing she's saying, what is bewildering is ajasya, that you are ajanma or unborn, akartur, inactive, that you're supposed to be inactive, right? Everybody thinks that, okay, God is just supposed to be this Lord of the universe, so he shouldn't be doing anything. He is unborn, but yet when they see you take birth, they get bewildered. This person is taking birth to a mother and father, just like us, just like normal human beings. So he has to be like us. And akartur, they expect that you will be inactive, but most people have the conception of let's say Brahman platform or a lord or a master who's just instructing his subordinates to do all the work. So how come you are doing all this work? You're killing demons and driving the chariot of your friend and all these things. Atmana, and you are the vital energy of everything, of the whole creation, of all living entities. And yet you take birth sometimes as an animal, Tirian, Nrishishu as a human being, Yadashu means in the water, like an aquatic. And so this is very bewildering, Atyanta Vidambanam. This is very bewildering to ordinary human beings. So now she's elaborating. So before she said that your pastimes are very bewildering, before she said that how you are impartial, how you're non-envious, how you have no object of favor. And now she's elaborating on why this is bewildering to everybody. So this shloka, when it starts, Jan Karm Cha Vishwatman, this reminds me of the very famous verse from Bhagavad Gita 4.9, where Krishna says, so first he says, why I come, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Then he says, he mentions a few reasons for his appearance, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sanstapnarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That is 4.7 and 4.8. Then in 4.9, which is a very famous verse, he says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yuveti tatvata tyaktva deham punarjanma naeti mameti. So Arjuna, that those who understand the divine nature of my birth and my appearance and my activities, of my janam and karma, of my appearance and karma or activities, those will never take birth again, and they will na eti mam eti, they will achieve me. Of that there is no doubt. So they will not take birth again. Tyaktva deham, after giving up this body, tyaktva deham punarjanma, they will never have another birth. Tyaktva deham punarjanma na eti, will never happen, another birth will never happen. And mameti, they will achieve me. Of that there is no doubt. So he has said this very clearly, that my appearance, so basically what that means is, it is not easy to get out of this cycle of birth and death. And he promises in that verse that whoever understands the divine nature of my appearance and activities will come to my abode, will come to me, will get out of this cycle of birth and death. So that means it is very difficult to understand. He knows that it is very difficult to understand the divine nature of his appearance and activities. That is why not many people will be able to understand it, and they will be stuck in the cycle of birth and death. And so indirectly we can draw this conclusion from that verse, that the appearance and activities of Krishna are very bewildering. He knows that they're very bewildering. So there are very few people who will be able to understand the divine nature of those things. And later on, in 7th chapter, he says that it takes many births for for people to come to that conclusion that Vasudev Sarvamiti. Bahunam Janmanamante Gyanvan Mam Prapadyate Vasudev Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. So that kind of Mahatma, great soul, are very rare who will be able to understand that Vasudev is everything. So it is not easy to understand his appearance and activities. They're very bewildering, and that is what Queen Kunti is saying here. So first thing, and I discussed this before, to understand his janma or birth, we always give the famous analogy of sun, how the appearance of God can be compared to sun. Sun appears and disappears to our sense perception, but that doesn't mean that the sun stops existing. We never say that sun takes birth. Oh, today sun has taken birth in the east direction, or sun has died in the west. No, that's not how we say. We say that sun has appeared, right? It appears to us, but it is always there. And it may appear for the other half of the universe while it's disappearing for us. So to our senses, the sun has disappeared, but to the other half of the world, the sun has appeared. So similarly, Krishna may appear and give and show us his pastimes, which are now perceptible to us by our senses, but when he disappears, he may be doing pastime somewhere else now, in different planet, or even at the same time he could be doing. He's infinite. He's has no beginning, no end. So he could be doing his pastime somewhere else in multiple places at the same time, or once he has wrapped up his Leela on the Bhulok, he may be doing his pastimes in another universe or in another planet of this universe. It's hard to understand those. So those things are very bewildering to those. That appearance and disappearance is very bewildering to people. And we just compare to us. Oh, we also take birth to a mother and father. Krishna has also taken birth for a mother and father. We die, he also dies. But this is not the same. You can compare it to the famous analogies that of the sun. So he's beyond the material laws. For example, law of karma. He's beyond that material law. It's a material law. It's applicable to us, to those who are under the control of three modes of material nature, but not to him. He's beyond those material laws. So and so those divine souls, those Mahatmas that have through a lot of purification or by causeless mercy of Krishna or whichever process, they have become perfected. Either they are Nitya Siddha or Sadhana Siddha, or whichever process, they have become perfected beings, Siddh Purush. They can participate in Krishna's Leela at any time, even while they're here on this material platform. They can still participate in Krishna's Leelas. They can go, they're always in connection with Krishna. So Krishna's Leelas are eternal. They are going on at all times, and they can enter into Krishna's Leelas, whenever they, as they want. But that is not the same for us. And so for us, his pastimes, his activities, his appearance and disappearance, all are very bewildering. And then this word here, Vishwatman, is very, very significant. So what that means, literally it means the soul of the universe, Vishwa Atman, Vishwa ki Atma, or soul of the universe. So I think we've discussed this before, how Krishna is the consciousness of this creation. And he says that in many different places in different ways. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, he says in verse 7.7, he says, Matta partaram nanyat kinchedasti dhananjaya maya sarvam idam protam sutre mani ganaiva. So he gives a very beautiful analogy of the beads that are threaded on a thread to make a necklace. So just like you can't see that thread, but without the thread, beads cannot be strung. So for the beads to be strung and make a necklace, they have to have a thread. Now you can't see the thread. When you look at the necklace, you can see that there is a small thread going through the beads, but it is there. It is a support. It is a base on which those threads, those beads hang. So he says, I am Matta Partaram Nanyat. Nobody is more superior to me. There is no second to Krishna. He's the only one. Nobody else superior to me. And I am situated in such a way as if the beads are strung on a thread. So he gives that analogy. In many other shlokas, he says that I am pervading this whole creation, and with just one spark of me, I can destroy and annihilate the entire creation, or I can pervade this entire creation. So many times he has said that. And this is one of the verses in chapter 10 from Bhagavad Gita 10.20. He says, Aham Atma Gudakesha. I am the super soul, O Arjuna. Sarva Bhutasya Sthita. Aham Adischa Madhyamcha Bhutanam Anta Evacha. That I am seated in the heart of all living beings. I am the beginning, the middle, and end of all beings. So without him, the creation is not possible. Creation is he's the consciousness, he's the vital force that's pervading the whole creation for it to exist. And we can compare it to our consciousness in the body, right? If there is no consciousness, the body is dead. It's dead matter. So when somebody dies, it's basically the spirit soul or the consciousness has left the body. Similarly, if Krishna is not there, then the material creation or nothing can exist. So he's the consciousness, he's the soul of this universe, and he's all pervading into everything in the form of super soul. And he says that multiple times. So in this, you saw in 10.20, he said that I'm situated in the heart of all living entities, right? Couple other very famous verses where he says, Sarvasya chaham hridisa niveshto. That's 15.15, where he says that I'm situated in the heart of all living entities. Similarly, in 18th chapter, 18.61, he says, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjun tishtati. So he says that I am situated in the heart of all living entities. And later on in the verse, he says that I drive all the living beings like a machine. Yantra Rurani Maya, that with my energy I drive them like a machine, like a yantra. So in this way, he's supporting everything, he's entered into everything, he's all pervasive. So I just wanted to show a couple other verses. Now, the way Prabhupada, and this one, so this is from Brahma Samhita, the way Prabhupada discussed this is, so we understand that Krishna is the supreme vital force of this creation, right? So he's entered as super soul in this world. He's within and without. He's and this is also said somewhere, I think in Sri Ishopanishad, that he says he's within and without. He's inside and outside. He's everywhere. And another way to understand this is, so basically he in his three Purusha avatars, right? He expands in as Karnodakshaya Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So Karno in the form of Karnodakshaya Vishnu, that expansion is the super soul of this entire material creation. And from the Karnodakshaya Vishnu comes all the universes. From his pores of his body, with each breath comes so many universes, infinite number of universes. And he expands into each universe as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, right? So Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is a super soul, can be considered as super soul of each of that universe. And then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu expands as the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu and enters into each living and non-living entity as the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, which is the super soul of all living and non-living entities. So in this way, he's the super soul of the whole creation in the form of his three Purusha avatars. And I wanted to share this verse for this. This is from Brahma Samhita, Brahmaji saying, the same Mahavishnu entered into each universe as his own separate subjective portions. The divine portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension. That is, they are the eternal universal soul Mahavishnu. So if you see here, they are the eternal universal soul, meaning soul of the universe, possessing thousands of heads. So basically, he's the soul of this entire creation. And his subjective portions, these separate subjective portions, these divine portions, the expansions are entering into each universe. And so they become the soul of that particular universe. So that will be Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then into each and every being, which is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So that is another way to understand this. But on a gross level, we can understand that Krishna is the consciousness, the soul of this universe. So that is one aspect I wanted to discuss that Prabhupada mentioned. Then the next thing Queen Kunti says is that you are Ajasya Akartur Atmana, that you are the vital energy, you are the unborn, Ajanma, and Akartur, right? I discussed that actually with the last verse, how in 3rd chapter Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said that there is nothing for me to do, yet when I come, I do certain activities because he says, Yadya Dacharti Shreshthas Tattad Evate Rojana, that whatever the leader does, the common man will follow. So I have to do certain activities. So, when he comes as Lord Ram, he's the ideal man. With each of his appearance, with each of his incarnation, he is performing various different type of acts, activities, and duties, right? So even though there is nothing for him to do, but he takes it upon himself because he's our father. He's the Paramatma, and our not just like a master, but also a soft-hearted father who wants to take care of his devotees. So even though there is not anything for him to do, he comes to delight his devotees with various activities and to set some principles, like he says, Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkritam, dharma sansthapanarthaya. So he establishes various principles so that the common man will follow. And then, and you can see, he's unborn, he's unlimited, he has no beginning, no end. He's the Adi Dev, he's the origin of all demigods, and he's the original primeval person, right? Like in Brahma Samhita, this famous verse, Brahmaji says, Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayavanam cha vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atmabhaktao govindamadi purusham tamham bhajami. So yes, these things are, all this is very bewildering about him, that he is Advaitam, one without second, that he is without decay, Chitam, or who cannot fall down, right? Anadim, without a beginning, Anant, infinite, right? Whose forms are endless. We know that Krishna, Hari Anant, Hari Katha Anant, right? His pastimes are infinite. Adyam, and he's the beginning. He's the most primeval person, yet he looks like a young blooming youth, and he cannot be understood through the Vedas. Vedeshu durlabham. So if somebody thinks, okay, I can just read about him and I'll understand all his pastimes and his activities and the nature of his appearance and disappearance, that is not possible. Adurlabham atma bhaktao. But who am I easily available to? I'm easily available to those that are my devotees. So through pure devotional service of the Lord, I'm easily available. Adurlabham. So that is the nature, that is what Krishna accomplishes with his appearances, with his activities. He delights these pure devotees, and then like he says in Janam Karma Cha Mein Divyam, when they try to approach him with pure devotional service, they understand the nature of his appearance, the nature of his activities, and then they can reach him easily without any difficulty. Adurlabham. But otherwise, if we just try to speculate about him, try to understand him through Vedas, then he says he is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtained by the pure devotional service. So those who are trying to achieve him without pure devotional service will be always bewildered about his appearances and disappearances and activities, and will always be in his various expansions, about his incarnations, and cannot understand him. And then this is a little bit different now. So so we understand that his appearance is difficult to understand, his activities are difficult to understand. Now Queen Kunti says, and what's more, the fact that you appear in animals, the fact that you appear in humans, the fact that you appear as aquatics, that is very, very bewildering to everybody. So that is even more bewildering. So okay, so when you come as a human, people think, okay, you are just a normal human who took birth to a mother and father, who's everything about, they ignore that you gave the Bhagavad Gita Updesh, they ignore that you saved Draupadi, they ignore that you show your universal form, they ignore that you killed so many demons. What child can do that? So people are ready to ignore all those divine activities and pastimes and just compare you to an ordinary human. And then what is even more bewildering is when you come as an animal or as an aquatic. Tad atyanta vidambanam. That is really, really bewildering. Verily, this is bewildering. So that is even more bewildering, because the problem is that we have a lot of ordinary human beings are very, very conditioned, so, and very, very envious. That's the nature of a conditioned soul, very, very envious. So first of all, we definitely don't want to believe in existence of that Krishna is the Lord, because we want to be the Lord. So first of all, we are very envious, of him, right? But we are also envious of even other living entities, right? So, for example, an animal, if you come as a boar, we are very envious of others. We say, oh, a pig, dirty animal, or a boar, Um, so we cannot imagine that God has created all these living entities. He's not envious of them. To him, coming as a human or coming as a boar or coming as a fish is the same thing. It's not like he's looking down upon one species and looking down upon another. It's not like that. It's not like us, that we look down upon a boar. Oh, it's a boar. How can somebody who is the Lord of all creation become a boar? Because that is our perception, that this animal is lowly, is lower than us. A fish, people are killing and eating fish all around us, right? So to think that Lord can take the form of a fish is just completely bewildering, because we are so envious of other entities. We are killing them. So we're killing them for our own sense gratification. We are looking down upon them because we think, oh, we are so superior. Forget other animals. We are looking down upon other human beings, this race, that particular profession, or that particular situation, or whatever, that body. So things like that. So because of this bodily conception, we are very, very envious. But to Krishna, he's completely non-envious. He does not have that problem like the conditioned souls. So if he comes as a boar or as an aquatic, it is not no different to him. To him, all are equal, right? Just like all should be equal to a Mahapurush. Like we see in Krishna says in Vidya Vinay Sampanne, Brahmane Gavi Hastini, right? Brahman, to a Brahman, all should be equal. So to Krishna, all are equal. They're all his creation. He doesn't differentiate. Okay, sometimes he comes as a human, sometimes he comes as a aquatic or as an animal. And then even in humans, he takes different, sometimes he'll come as a Kshatriya, sometimes as a Brahman, right? As a devotee, when he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But to us, oh, how can he come as a devotee? So that is why we're not ready to, agree that, okay, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. Because that is our conditioning, our enviousness, that we want an awe-inspiring form. We want something huge, something very big, something with extraordinary qualities in front of us. Only then we'll believe that this is God. So that is why Krishna, shows his universal form to attract people that are envious of him, because at least in that universal form, they will be able to say, okay, this can be God, because he showed a universal form. But so we're not when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or when Prabhupada actually says that in this yuga, Krishna has appeared as Harina. We cannot believe that, because we are again very envious. How can a sound, how can a mantra be Krishna himself? Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. So how can a book so to us, okay, this is a book, this is just a sound, Tulsi Maharani is just a plant, or Shaligram Shila is just a stone. We cannot imagine that these can be manifestations of Krishna. Because it has to, for us to believe, for a conditioned soul to believe, it has to be a very revered, huge, extraordinary, with many arms and many heads, that form. So that is why the higher understanding is given that universal form is actually a little bit of lesser understanding, because Krishna's original form is that of the two-handed form. And so so the universal form, the Virat Roop, is actually a lower understanding for pure devotees. And you can see in Brahma Vimohan Leela, actually Raksha Mataji very beautifully narrated this Leela in the class this morning. Brahma Vimohan Leela, even Lord Brahma, who is our topmost acharya, he's a pure devotee of the Lord, he's in the top of the line in our disciplic succession. Even he was bewildered that a child playing with gopas and eating their jhuta food, because when we you prepare bhoga, we don't taste the food. and yet Krishna is taking their remnants and eating their jhuta food. How is that possible? So he was also bewildered, right? Although that is, Krishna uses his devotees to set various examples, but still, for us to understand that that all of these pastimes, even something as simple as him having lunch with gopas, can be so bewildering. Forget about conditioned souls, even to devotees, it can be so bewildering. So that was the part about how he takes, how he appears in different species and how his different expansions are. Okay, so sorry, I'm just looking to see. I think I'm almost done here. So Prabhupada basically, this is what he talked about how he also talked about in the purport, he talked about the partiality, how the full mercy is achieved by those engaged in pure devotional service, and those who are not fully surrendered, they're receiving his mercy, they're only partial recipients of his mercy. This is just mentioned in the purport. So he talked about partiality and how that was actually mentioned in the last shloka, but he's mentioned this here also, that partiality is relative to the recipient. It is not that the all supreme merciful Lord is partial, but the partiality is based on the reciprocation of the recipient. So if it is based on his surrender. So if he's partially surrendered, he'll get only partial mercy. If he's fully surrendered, he'll get the complete mercy. So so full surrender means to follow in the footsteps of our acharyas and the pure devotees of the Lord who who take delight in the appearance and activities of Krishna, and they are not bewildered by those activities. They understand that Krishna is non-envious. They understand that when he appears as Matsya Avatar or Vara Avatar, or Kurma Avatar, or comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or if he comes as a Brahman, as a Rishi, as a Kshatriya, it's all still Krishna. He comes for our pleasure, for our benefit. There is, I remember that verse where which talks about various expansions of Krishna. So, Ete chamsha kalapam sa Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Ridyanti Yuge Yuge. So various expansions and various incarnations that happen, they're all for our, to give delight to his devotees. And so instead of trying to analyze them, trying to use speculative knowledge, or just trying to understand him through Vedas, if we just take association of pure devotees and try to understand through them, then we can be free of this vidambana, this bewilderment. Otherwise, we'll always be bewildered because his activities are very difficult to understand. But understand them like a pure devotee does. Adurlabham Atma Bhaktao. Hare Krishna. That's all I wanted to share. Please correct if any mistakes.